was the girl that everyone was collecting dead bugs for. And yes, that is gross. I know what you're thinking. My latest art school project had me taking photographs inside this small foam core theater I had built. Inside, I arranged different scenes with clumps of moss and clay mushrooms and these found dead bugs, all in front of these whimsical painted backdrops. They were beautiful photos, and I think they were inspired by some of the little glimpses of magic I had witnessed on some of my hikes, but I was trying to create something that would last. It was one of the last days of the semester, and I shared an elevator with Professor Wolf. I told him I was getting ready to go on a road trip up to Acadia National Park in Maine. And Professor Wolf, who was basically the stand-in grandfather for the whole art department, all but swept me away with this amazing story about the time that he faced off with a wolf in Yellowstone. So I asked, did you get any photos? And his face instantly dropped. And he said, I would never take a camera with me. I was confused. This was my art history professor, and photography was an art form. I knew he was crazy about Italian Renaissance paintings in a way that I could never be. But is he one of those people that just hates photography? He wasn't, and he explained, when you take a photograph, you actually take your eyes away from the thing that you're trying to capture, and your brain just shuts off because it doesn't need to do any extra work to record it. It's going to rely on the photograph. I keep all of my photographs up here. But I love taking photos, so I completely ignored him, and I brought my camera everywhere with me on that trip, from the rocky coast along Bar Harbor up to the top of Cadillac Mountain. I photographed tiny white mushrooms and crusty lichen growing on ancient boulders, deep blue tide pools, and mountaintops shrouded in fog. It was a wild and inspiring road trip, and it was full of hours of hiking and some pretty funny attempts at coffee over a campfire. On our last day, and actually on our way out of the park, we stopped at one last trailhead. Unfortunately for us, the trail quickly transformed into a swampy and buggy and ugly walk. I think that's why I didn't notice much of a transition, because my eyes were so focused on helping my boots to find the high ground. So as I was squishing along, I noticed that the quality of light had changed. It was green, like really green. And in fact, the entire ground and surrounding trees were completely coated in this thick green blanket of moss, so thick that it left every hard edge blobby and soft looking. It was stunning. And the artwork that I was attempting to make back in college paled in comparison to this scene. So of course, I reached for my camera, but I don't find it in my backpack. Did I seriously leave my camera in the car this one time I actually needed it? I was so mad at myself, I could have cried, but I didn't have much time to stay upset because my senses were pulling me from one thing to the next. Looking at an old toad under some crunchy leaves, an abandoned burrow at the base of a mossy tree, crystal dewdrops poised and ready to spill over the edge of a branch. Before I got too carried away, I plopped myself down and I did what my inner child was begging me to do, and I took my hiking boots and my socks off. My feet sunk down into this moss, and it was as if I were standing on a mattress. It was so springy and deep. So of the million beautiful scenes I could have looked at here in the moss forest, what really captured my attention was this tiny blue fly. Its exoskeleton was so shiny, like a blue mirror. The metallic sheen made it seem man-made, but as I watched it, its two antennae slowly moved in a circle, proof of the life that was tethered to that blue armor. So imagine it with me. I was staring at this bright blue creature sitting on a deep green bed of moss with a beam of warm sunlight filtering through just one iridescent wing. It was stunning, and it just sat still for me for a minute. It's true that I don't remember a lot of the road trip, except for what I took in the photographs, but all of the in-between moments have just faded and been lost. They weren't recorded. But the moss forest, I remember every step I took through that forest because I was really present. I remember the fly. I could paint it in perfect detail today. I remember that it was like looking at something perfect, and it's all up here. Thank you for listening to my story.